Spartanburg, Greenville area up in there. I did a lot of residential development. It was easy.
Yeah, I'm so tired of Comcast.
Oh, the construction.
My bills just every
Down
month.
at Fort Mill.
Oh,
Gross.
I call, then they go down, then they go back up, and then they go down. It's like, that's crazy.
Sticks. Next thing you know, it's something you go.
Oh, I'm paying over.
They're putting up schools like
Nothing,
they're going on.
nothing.
It's gross.
For WOW? Or for Comcast?
I think that's the deal when they bought Bard from Bard.
Sorry.
No, I put my coat there too, because he's not gonna be here. Well, they raised our cable bill $9. We took away 3 channels.
Yeah, yeah.
We got Bisbee.
Careful, 3 channels, because I don't watch them anyhow, but it's the
just they
principle,
have-
it's
yeah,
the principle.
Exactly.
We have a smaller group today.
Yeah, what's going on with that deal?
This is it.
We're ready, Brett? Okay. Let's call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First roll call, please.
Councilmember Barrett.
Here.
Councilmember Ellis.
Here.
Councilmember Gazelle.
Present.
Kaczynski.
Present.
And Councilmember Cusick. Here. And we have council members Bisbal and Asluny absent.
Right, and he's asked to be excused. He's in Florida. And then a council member, Alex, sent an email that he'd like to be excused. He's got a business meeting tonight. So, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Page 3 to 5 is the minutes from the December 15th regular meeting. Please take a look at them, and Bruce, again, 3 pages, good.
I bet. I wasn't even here.
Oh,
I watched closely on video.
we've had some 8-page ones.
Yes.
If everything is in order, I need a motion to approve the minutes.
To accept the minutes. Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, on page 6 to 8, we have a few commission and committee minutes. Again, we're just accepting them in the public depository. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there support? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Public comment? We have any public comment? We're a little smaller audience than we did last month, I must say.
Yep, got one.
Yes, hi.
Hello, Marlene Smith, 15 Woodland Shores. I just have a quick comment. I have talked to the mayor and a couple council members before. A couple of the residents, including myself, have noticed that at the park, it's been very lax of how many people and who's coming into our park. Several times I've seen kids, a group of kids from high school on up, come in and they do not one of them live in the Shores. I know exactly where they live. And friends of mine too have walked in, and I said, how did you beat me here? We were gonna meet, and she got in. So they're not even asking for park passes. Some people are not even residents of the Shores. So I know I've made a comment to Ted before, just hoping that they get tighter on that. It used to be in the last several years, it gets less and less and less. There aren't chairs at the park, and I've talked to you about that before. And this is even during the week. It's not even just on the weekends. So if we could take a look at that and make sure
Okay.
that things like that get tightened up a little bit better, because a lot of our neighbors have noticed it, and it's prevalent every day. I mean, it's not just here and there.
Okay. Well, good comment. That's one of the things, I know it was discussed extensively at the town hall that we had for Park and Harbor. And we talked about, I know Bob's the chair and Tina's on Park and Harbor, that we're going to develop new regulations about the sizes of the picnics. And you know, ultimately, I'm afraid we're headed to a situation where we're going to have to reconfigure the driveway into the park so that our gate guard is near the
I
entrance
think
way.
that would be a great idea.
You know, we're going to probably headed that way. Our parking lot's too small, and we had, the last 2 years, I think we had the most number of complaints about, you know, not being able to get in the park to park, not being able to get a, you know, a chair or whatever, and
Or a picnic table, or,
you know, and then we're gonna, you know, I'm in fact, every council member is gonna get a list of all the people that have a complimentary park pass. And we're gonna, you know, so that if a resident complains that so-and-so was in the park and they claim they have a park pass, you know, we will know, you know, we're gonna release that. It's gonna be available upstairs, because after the town hall, a couple of people asked me, can I see that list? Do we have a lot of complimentary park passes? And so I said, no, we're gonna make that available. Mark told me he's gonna have it at the front counter, and we won't have to file, no one will have to file a FOIA request, or it'll be available right at the counter.
great,
So-
thank you. We really appreciate that.
Okay,
I think one
thanks.
main issue too that came up at the town hall meeting is enforcement of the regulations that we have now.
Right.
Without becoming a police state, which we don't want either.
Right.
So,
Well, we would.
happy medium.
I would never think twice about trying to get in anybody else's park. I mean, literally, I've tried to pick my son up from basketball camp at the Woods Park, and because I didn't live there, I almost left my license with them because I just had to pick him up and leave. And they are so tough, and we just would never think of getting in anybody else's park. But our park, everyone just, oh yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, we need some enforcement, there's no
So,
question.
all right, thank you.
We're going to address that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Marlene. Any more public comment? If not, at this time, we have our Marina Bond update, and pleased to see Mike Gormley. And I hear you're going to deliver good news, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. I am. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to hit the high points, but first of all, I really need to give a lot of accolades to Mark, Rhonda, and Councilman Bisbal, who's not here, but probably in somewhere nicer than this.
Yes.
When we went on our trip to Chicago, you know, our main goal was to get the AA plus back to AAA, and we were successful. And that certainly helped in the interest rate that we ultimately locked in a couple weeks ago. And so that went according to plan. So the city is now AAA with S&P, first time in its history, which I'm happy to say. And I see if the city's finances stay the way they are, and the budgeting and the management, there should be no changes to that. Unfortunately, you can't go higher than AAA, but you're higher than the U.S. government, I'll tell you that. With regard to the refinancing, to hit the high points, when we started down the road and I approached Mark back in the fall and Rhonda, we had a finance committee meeting in October. I presented numbers to the finance committee, a couple options. We could take the savings level on an annual basis. We could take the savings rear loaded and maybe get rid of the debt 1 or 2 years early. The decision was made to take them level. And at that time in October, our true interest cost, or known as in the business, the TIC, was just over 3%. And the net present value savings, net of all cost of issuance that you pay, it's almost like a home refinancing mortgage where you roll it in. At the time in October, the net present value savings was $307,000. It's about 8.5%. Now, the industry standard for municipal refundings is in the 3% range. So I made the recommendation to the finance committee at that time, you know, we might as well take advantage of it and get yourself positioned now, and we should probably think about setting up a face-to-face meeting with the rating analysts in Chicago to get the AAA. So we proceeded along. We got the AAA. We came to market, and we priced the bonds on the 14th. Not only did the AAA help us, but the bond market moved in our favor with rates going lower at the same time. We had a lot of interest in the bonds from trust departments, institutional investors, and which is always good, because what happens was when you go out with the initial pricing in the morning, you come back in the afternoon and you have a conference call, and we had a conference call with Rhonda, and we were able to lower the interest rate on many maturities by anywhere from 3 to 5 basis points, increasing the savings. So when we ultimately locked in the interest rates on June 14th, we went from October of a true interest cost of a 3.05 to a 2.753. So we lowered the rate by 1/4 of a point, and that is really a combination of the city's rating upgrade and the market movement. The net present value savings increased from $307,000 to $441,000, or 12% of of the bonds that we refunded. So we were nearly 4 times what you would consider the industry standard for a municipal refunding. So when you look at it annually to the Marina Fund, when we started out in October, we were looking at about $20,000 annual savings. We ended up with nearly $30,000 annual savings. About $570,000 gross savings. Present value that back to the $441,000. So things really moved along perfectly. The market fell in place. The rating fell in place. We accomplished our goal there, and it's certainly going to help out the Marina Fund as well as the general fund in any help that it's doing. So it's really truly a win-win for the city, and I just want to congratulate you and really thank once again Rhonda, who did a tremendous amount of heavy lifting, because assembling one of these official statements that goes out to every bond investor that looks at it, and when they see a AAA rated credit in Wayne County, they're going to look hard at it, and they're going to look very closely at it, and there's a lot of great things in here on the city that you should be proud of. And so the presentation that Mark, Rhonda, and the councilman made really put us over the top to get us to the AAA, and I think that they really take all the credit on that. You know, I was just merely an air traffic controller telling them the high points, what they wanted to hear, and they gave the presentation and did a phenomenal job to get us there. So really, and then the market moved in our favor when we priced on the 14th. So the bonds will be delivered on February 17th, but the rates are already locked in. Everything's done. The bond buyers have already been confirmed. They'll be buying the bonds. The money will be wired over to the city's escrow agent, Bank of New York, on the 17th of February, and then the bonds will be called out on October 1, 2016. So everything fell into place, and I couldn't be happier for the city and the administration. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
So the bonds are already pre-funded, essentially, for the
Exactly.
redemption.
So they are in an escrow account, escrowed in government securities, and the city will begin making payments after the 10-1 payment, which will be the final payment, because that's the call date. After 10-1, the city will begin making payments on the low interest rate debt for the remainder of the bonds. So we mirrored the amortization schedule. We didn't stretch it out. We didn't shorten it. We took the savings, about $30,000 annually, on an even basis throughout the life of the deal.
And the amortization is ratable, there's no bump ups in terms of principal payments? It's
No, it
like the other one was.
exactly. It will be the same, because as you get later on in the yield curve, you're going to be paying
More principal.
interest. So you'll be paying more principal at lower interest. And so there is more interest in the early end. So it mirrored, if you would, Mayor, the amortization, not exactly, but it mirrored it to get the savings to a level basis. So we didn't extend it. The average life didn't increase. It actually shortened a little with the amortization, but the decision was made by the Finance Committee that let's take the savings level, let's not extend it out. We definitely don't want to extend it out and reduce the payments. Let's not shorten it and take it on the long end and keep it almost break even. Let's get the Marina Fund and General Fund savings on an annual basis, and between the time we started it in October and the time we ended it in January, we increased by $10,000 with that rating upgrade and the market movement. So everything worked out
Well,
perfectly.
that's great news, Mike. I know we were anticipating an $18,000 recurring savings, and so to hit 30 is, that's
Yes.
big, because that's every year, that's year after year after year.
Exactly.
My
Exactly.
wife said, I want to buy some of those bonds. I want to purchase some of those bonds.
There may be some on the secondary market, but I can't tell you where they'll be trading.
I wouldn't mind having a copy of that, Mike, what she had, the bullet point from Standard & Poor's, if you could show council that cover. Do we have that?
This is the official statement that went out to all the bond investors.
Okay.
But Rhonda does have the rating report that officially came from Standard & Poor's, and I don't know if that was distributed or not.
I'm not sure I thought we had sent it.
I think we did receive that, but
This is the official statement, so a final version will be printed, and I will make sure that enough copies, each of the council and mayor and administration will have
I
enough.
think council would like that.
Yes, a hard copy of this document. Because this is just a preliminary that went out. This will be finalized right now and printed in a couple days. And then all the interest rates, everything will be locked in. That'll be the final official statement. So we'll make sure that enough hard copies are sent to Rhonda that she can distribute.
Is that part of the prospectus, Mike, or is that
That is
the?
prospectus.
That is the prospectus.
Yes, that's the preliminary that goes out. And then, once the terms are finalized, everything is finalized in there. But the audit's in there, all the demographic information in there, the financial information, any of the tweaks with regards to the bond sizing, exactly the deposit to the escrow, those sorts of fine-tuned things are the things that get fine-tuned in the final OS. The interest rates on the cover of the OS that you'll be paying for the life of the deal, those sorts of things are in the final OS. But that is the preliminary official statement or the preliminary prospectus.
Now, I understand you were, discussing this with 3 analysts? I mean, you were critiqued by 3 analysts of our proposal?
We were, and it's the senior analyst, unfortunately, who I know well, who's a very, very sharp analyst and does a very good job, was the backup. The other 2, I would say, were more rookies, but they were very well versed at the city. But I found it to be comforting that the analyst, the senior analyst, who unfortunately had to call in for a conference call to join us, wasn't with us, but was well in tune and asked some good questions, had said he had been to the city and had been to an event at the yacht club. So had already been here and knew the city. So, and he said that right off the bat. So he said, I know exactly where you are, I've been to the yacht club. So that was very comforting to hear, and I think he had a lot of say in the final rating when it came down to it, because it goes before a senior committee. It's not the 2 analysts or the 3 analysts. They basically take a recommendation to a senior committee and justify it, and it's a senior committee made up of analysts throughout the country. And you're not only looked at AAA credits in Michigan, which there are very few, especially cities, but nationally. So they look at AAA credits nationally and compare you nationally how you stand up with regards to demographics, income, housing values, those sorts of things. So you're a very unique community, and that obviously the Farms is AAA. Now we have 2 AAAs next door to each other, the only 2 in Wayne County. But I can guarantee you that you were looked at other AAA credits similar to you that on a national basis. And if you read the report, what they have is what they call an FMA, a financial management assessment, that came back strong. That means that all the procedures that are in place, the policies that are in place, the management that's in place is all viewed very, very strongly by the rating agencies. And the bond community looks at that and gets very comfortable with that and is willing to accept a lower interest rate. And that's the way we were able to generate more orders and then lower the interest rate on the bonds to the city's benefit.
So that helped with the dissemination of the bonds or AAA rating.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Good. Are there any other questions of Mike? Yes, Mark?
One thing I wanted to mention, Mike, is this is the second issue that he's done with us as, what's the right term, underwriter?
Bond underwriter?
And it allowed us, in this case, for this level of bonds, we saved, Pat McGow does the official legal review of this as bond counsel for us, but Mike's actually saved us from having to employ, like we have had in the past, but for the last 2 issues, we've been able to work with him, and Rhonda does a lot of work, so we didn't need a financial advisor, and that's got to be worth, in this case, how much would you say roughly?
At least $15,000 to $20,000,
So,
and that's direct costs.
yeah, that's a direct cost that we did not have to pay in this case, so it's a savings for us. So.
By eliminating the intermediary, I mean the arbitrage fee, is that essentially what it is?
The advisor fee.
Or advisor fee?
Yes, so that would be another cost of issuance line item like bond counsel, like official statement printing, like bond rating. Financial advisor would probably be, in this case, a $15,000 to $20,000 fee. which would reduce your savings by that amount
Right.
on a dollar by dollar
That'd be
basis.
the cost of the issue then. Okay,
Exactly,
roll
that is a
okay.
cost of issuance item. And
Well,
as
once
Mark said-
again, great work. Mark, Rhonda, I mean,
Yes.
Bruce, Mike, I mean, I know, I mean, it was stressful. You were there a couple hours, you know, and like I said, you have to convince the initial analyst, and then, of course, they have to convey that. And, you know, I kind of wonder how many AAA cities there are in the country, you know, now that you, but not many. I
You
would,
know, in certain pockets, you know, a lot out east in the New York area, a lot in California, you know, certain pockets throughout the country, but very few in this area, especially city-wise. Yes, Oakland County's a AAA, Kent County's a AAA. Those are large, well-to-do counties with strong municipalities in there, but cities, in bankrupt counties, no. If I could probably count those on one hand throughout the country. So you are extremely rare in that case.
no, great job, Mike.
Thank you
Great
very
job.
much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
See, now we have item 8, a public hearing for our CBG program year. Mark, do you want to explain that?
Sure. For the last several years, we participated in the Wayne County Community Development Block Grant Program. And actually, I'll just say, in the first year, they made a mistake. I think they had our population wrong, so we got $40-some thousand, so, which we provided to SOC and to PATS, and with very little administrative cost. There are some caps. The county has gone through another, all their staff is gone again. They've assigned some temporary people. They have one clerk that's been there more than a few years that understands this. And Bob has represented us on both their advisory council and their appeals council. And he came back after a meeting in November or December and said, the health department, this has now been thrown under the health department, and the guy's got a whole new idea of what they're gonna do. And of course, it hadn't come to any of the communities at that point. And some of us have sent, well, actually, we're waiting for reimbursement, Rhonda, unless we just got it. Okay, and I sent it to the executive's office, a copy, and this is under the existing program for last year's spending money. We had very small administrative costs, which pays for us to put the ads in the paper that we have to do to advertise the public hearing. And the rest was spent on their program for the last year, and this will continue a little bit for next year, was to employ folks that wouldn't normally be employed. So we developed a program which they liked, and the program pays for a 30-hour employee in DPW. They came to us from Full Circle, and it pays for job coaches and the employees that they work with from Full Circle that help staff our concession stand in the summer. And they like that program. Well, now it's all going to the health, but normally we held this meeting in late November, or, you know, November at the latest in December. But again, because they had no staff, everything is different. Their first email, and we met with them first as a group of all the Grosse Points, and then they did meet with the Woods separately because they're one of they have the biggest amount coming to the Grosse Points. But working with the staff and the new people assigned, the temporary division head, they're taking a look at implementing a program that will help them provide healthy things to Wayne County. And now that's different than the employment process, but they figured finally, after enough communities told them, you can't do this year, we're already behind the deadline. So we got an email that said, okay, we're gonna delay that for implementation till next year. That's, well, okay, some of us wrote back, how much money do we have? Oh, we forgot to tell you that. Well, just use last year's amount. So, I don't have a strong confidence in their staff because nobody knows who they are and what they're doing. But in any case, to comply with the federal rules, we will be having tonight's public hearing, and the action after, if there's anybody else from the county, from the city that wants to say anything, we'll take the input, and we may need to revise the program, but we'll be holding, as are some of the other gross points, to meet the requirement of timeliness in terms of submitting our actual application, which they want by February 1st. And then they, again, I just give this as an example, they send a note saying, well, if you can't have both hearings by then, you still gotta submit your grant application, but you might have to amend it later if your second hearing says that you wanna do Y instead of X. So we'll be meeting next week administratively, and we put all this in one ad. And this is allowed under the block grant rules to solicit additional input. And then again, a couple of the other gross points, the farms, I think the park, the city did this last year, in order to get the time frame in. If we don't know what we can spend it on or what their priority target is, we can't do this by February 1st and have our application in. But thank goodness for Lori, who has gone with me to some of the classes that how to do this, and so that we'll be soliciting input tonight, part of the public meeting. We'll probably, our application will set a small amount, which is in the ad, I suppose I can read it if I find it, that covers the cost of the ads we gotta put in the paper, and we'll be paying for the part-time person at DPW. And Brett may wanna comment on how successful he's been accepted by the guys, and they love working with him, and he does all the jobs that the guys don't want to do. I mean, not they don't want to do it, but he's just happy to do a variety of things. And he actually comes with more skills than the last time we had a person with special needs. So we'll be spending the funds on that again as part of the program. And if there are other questions, I'm happy to answer them as well. But I suppose I should read, if I can find it someplace, where the what we put in the ad for our. I'll find it while you take comment from any others. And again, we get about $18,000. 1,700 we put toward the ads and the things that we have to do, administrative costs, submitting the paperwork. And then the rest goes to the, to cover those two projects, the 30-hour employee at DPW and the job coaches and things at our concession stand in the summer.
Mark, the resolution says we're gonna spend or approve for expenditure $19,500.
That was last year's.
14.5 for jobs, Pat's for 3,500.
I'm sorry for that.
And then 1,500 for administration.
Yep.
This is just our first public hearing, so we're not gonna actually,
Well, you're able to approve the application, authorize us to submit the application, and we'll put this in the resolution that we will notify you if there's any additional comments that come up that we need to change the program in any way. Typically, we would send a note back to council that, okay, they've analyzed everything and there's one more community in, so we're only gonna get 17,000 instead, and we'll split it that way. But
okay.
the purpose tonight is to listen to the public, have the needs. I know Pat's will use it. I think our liaison to Pat's, council member Ellis, will be going to the Pat's meeting tomorrow to learn their budget and their activities as well. So.
Okay, good. Well, at this point, I open it up to the public hearing. This is essentially, I don't want to say free money, but money we never took advantage of, I think, Mark, before you came aboard. And it allows us to do some things in the city that really we weren't doing. Pat's is for assistance in driving. I was a beneficiary of Pat's years ago when I had shoulder operation. It's generally designed for seniors, but also for people that have in my case, a part-time disability because I was in a sling and ordered by the doctor not to drive. So they took me down to Henry Ford Center for Athletic Medicine by Henry Ford Hospital, and I would go at least once a week via Pat's. And it was a discount. I think I paid $1.50 for them to pick me up at the house, drive me down, get really like valet service at the front of the Center for Athletic Medicine. And I mean, what a wonderful service. And for 6 weeks. So again, this is one of the services that we're allowed to benefit from this community block grant. But at this point, is there any comments? We open it up to the public for any public input. Or hearing none, is there any council comments?
You brought up a good point about Pat's, and like Mark said, I'm the liaison with SOC, and I'll be going to the Pat's meeting tomorrow. This is all new to me, and I'm just wondering how new this is to the people, the citizens of our town, that you have this opportunity to have transportation. I know a lot of people that are seniors that don't have family, or they're out of town, they hire a driver, or they look for neighbors to drive them. I would like to see how we can get this information available so that our residents know that it's out there, so that we don't have seniors not going to meetings or to appointments because they don't have transportation, especially in the bad weather. That's one comment. 2 comments concerning the employee of the concession stand. I don't know if Parks and Harbors has the exact hours that we're gonna have, but is it flexible that if we increase our hours at the concession stand,
Yeah.
that we would have coverage at that
We
time?
would have coverage. We're limited as to the allocation of funds based on the amount that were granted.
Okay,
So we've always known we were gonna subsidize that
Okay.
anyway, so.
okay,
We do go through the calendar with them.
Okay.
We schedule more times for the concession stand to be open.
Okay.
Especially to meet the needs of the swim teams.
uh-huh,
That's the greatest need right now. If
Sure.
there's other events that can be added on too,
okay.
but that's all been looked at.
And if we get any more money, we can charge it to the grant too.
Yep, that's right.
Any other
I
comments?
just, Mark talked about, I went to the meeting, it was in Trenton in November, with the Dr. Humani made this presentation, and we didn't know what was going on. There was no agenda, no nothing. He made this 20-minute presentation, talked about all these nice streetscapes you can do in that, and most of the pictures were from Europe, they weren't even from the US. So, just about, he got beat up pretty good verbally, and then he was supposed to meet with all the municipalities in a short period of time. Well, that didn't happen until Mark got involved and called for all the shores, all the Grosse Points to meet. So, we're gonna have a long road to haul with this Wayne County stuff. It's not gonna be easy, and it looks like they wanna try and take a lot of money for a lot of different things.
Yeah, one thing I would say also for council to understand, this program's been in existence from the Nixon administration days, and it was part of his core block grants in different areas. And Wayne County, when they administered this program in the early 70s and mid-70s, they ran a program with tremendous people. They had great staff people, with 3 or 4 people doing the whole program. And because I worked on it and participated when I worked in Westland and later when I was in Plymouth, and I went to Oakland County, and everybody talks about what a great job Oakland County does. Oakland County, and this is a little bit of an exaggeration, like 27 staff people for about half as much money as Wayne County got. So I used to brag to people about how well this program was administered by Wayne County. Well, of course, who did they put it under but that Turkia Mullen for a while? She contracted out to the service to an outside contractor who didn't know what the heck was going on. There were all kinds of issues with HUD and other things that they were just getting back on track. And of course, there's a change in administration, which means there's going to be a change in the elected county executive program with all the key department heads. So instead of being under economic development or having someone in charge that knew, most of the staff left and gone to other agencies, and there's no understanding of the issues that went on or how to administer this program. And the new people, as I said, there's only one person left who was even there 2 or 3 years ago. We dealt with to get our bills processed, and we've been waiting since I think August for the first quarter payment, and I think we got a second one coming up, because you have to spend the money to get reimbursed and provide a whole bunch of documentation to get it. So I'm working with Tupac Hunter from the executive's office to at least get the payment made that of the funds that were allocated for last year in the first half of the year. And you know, he's looking into what's taken so long as well. So I'm not, I'm disappointed that, again, they're starting over, but they'll be given some consideration by HUD to do this. And if, you know, we can adapt our program based upon what their priorities are, and or which area of priorities they're trying to fill. So we'll be working through that with the other Grosse Pointes. And we think even next year, we maybe will hold a joint one public meeting and then have each community, again, if we know this timely, and this wasn't something many of us have been writing or emails to them, say, hey, what's going on? What's our target number? What's your priorities for this year, etc. We'll know. Hopefully they get it done by next year. And if their targets are somewhat different, we'll make sure that it's something, the value of these programs are in if they can provide, if we can use the funds to provide services for residents that are affected here. If they're not, it's not, you know, you see some of these agencies that will chase the dollars and, oh, my mission changed because they've decided weatherization is the important issue this year. Well, we have to make a decision, staff-wise, and recommendations to council that, yeah, we can use this and it can benefit people here because this is the target, and we should be able to generally adjust to meet those requirements, but hopefully we get a little bit better notice than this year because we're already 2 months behind.
So Mark, the source of this is federal, from the federal government.
Federal government to Wayne County in the state of Michigan. We would be eligible we're eligible in 3 ways. We are not a direct recipient. For example, St. Clair Shores, when I worked there, I think it used to get $2.3 million. They've been cutbacks in the program and stuff, paying they're down to 700, 800,000. But they were an entitlement community because they had a original urban renewal program, etc. We could apply directly to the state, who administers this outstate. We could apply through Wayne County. We also could apply through Macomb County. And I badgered the Macomb County folks. I thought we ought to be able to apply on both, but they caught that and decided we only got one bite of the apple.
All right, good. Well then, I mean, it's like the committee, Brett, you're on the FAC committee, the Federal Aid Committee, so it's the same thing. The source of the money is the federal government. It's administered by the local county jurisdiction, which is Wayne County, so. So at this point, we need a resolution, Mark, then to approve this program?
Yes, prove that we participate in the program after the hearing, and that if there are any modifications based on the second public meeting, which is I held next Thursday, I think at 10 o'clock, here, and I'll probably be the only one here unless I can get some friends in the audience that might want to come and talk about it. Then we'll notify council if there's any other amendments or anything else, so.
Okay, then I need a motion to approve this resolution for the year 2016,
So
our
moved.
application.
So moved.
Is there support?
Second.
Any further discussion? And again, this is subject to the second hearing that needs to be held. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Bless
Any
you.
opposed? Okay, thank you. Our next item, item number 9, is we have some reappointments to some boards and committees. I'd like to reappoint Mary Matusha to the Planning Commission as the chair, John Leza as the Board of Review chair, Jan Pemberton, Marlene Smith, and Paul Thurston to the Board of Review for a 3-year term, Brett Marshall, Tree Board Chair, 2-year term, and Brett Smith, 2-year term, Tree Board, and Harold Michaud, Tree Board, 2-year term. I'd like approval from council.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Number 10, Rhonda.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year's to everyone. I have to get my prop out. Bragging or anything, but you know.
Oh, I love that, I love
I gotta keep it short in case the glue.
Oh, okay.
and, you know, and then
Yeah,
also
show
not
the
bothering
audience
rocks,
that.
but
Pass, oh, is that neat?
got a little crafty today. All right, so in our packet today, start off with our wire transfers for the month. The one item that normally does not show up on this list, it's just an annual item, is the funding for our health savings accounts for the employees. So normally it's just at the beginning of the calendar year. There may be, you know, a minor change during the year should we have a new hire or something, but otherwise it's all in January of each calendar year.
Is it separated by 3 dates, the 6th,
Yes.
7th, and 8th?
With the Chase Bank used to run the HSA account. I could do everything on one day. And so Chase is no longer in the HSA business, so now HSA Bank is handling it for us. And so we have a $50,000 limit, so.
Okay, I was gonna say, okay.
Moving on to our check register. Some of the items that are not typical on the monthly register. On the first page, you'll see a check for $9,000 to Sig Sauer for firearms. Also, at the bottom of that page, and in several other instances through the check register, you're gonna see checks written to employees with Social Security tax next to it. And what that was, is these are the newer public safety officers. When they were first hired on, because they were not part of the pension system, I was taking Social Security taxes out of them. Well, it turns out, because we require them to participate in a deferred comp program and participate by a certain percentage of their paycheck into this program, that they are qualified for not to have Social Security withheld from their tax. So we've gone back to basically the third quarter of 2013, corrected the 941s and the W-2s, and started getting some of these refunds back. As the refunds come in, I distribute them immediately to the employees that were affected by this. So far, we've collected $22,000 and some odd dollars, which $11,000 of that is the city's share.
Okay.
And we expect another $32,000 to come in yet, so another $16,000 that belongs to the city.
Is that something they can opt in or opt out?
There's no choice of opting in or out. It all depends on their involvement with the pension system, or in this case, the defined contribution plan.
And because the box is check retirement plan on their W-2 then, I mean, that's the trigger for not being eligible for opting out?
Well, not necessarily, because a lot of the employees are part of the pension system, but being a public safety employee, Act,
Oh, 312?
yes, or no, not 312, 152 or something like that.
Oh,
There's that option.
okay, okay. Any other questions? Rhonda, there was a check for $12,500 fiduciary insurance. Is that for the pension
It's
plan?
a pension system, and that rate is the same as last year. One thing that has not changed.
A couple years ago, we had Chubb. It was a little bit more money, I think. It was 13.
Well, it is through Chubb, it's just that the agent that we're using is
Oh,
Johnson Lewis.
okay, okay.
There's also a check for $7,600 for the calendars, the annual charge. We had some tree replacements, water main breaks. There was a check to City of Grosse Pointe Farms for our quarterly payment for the dispatch, the lockup, and our court.
There was a check for jacket, $1,600. Was that for the
It's,
employees or?
Those were jackets purchased for certain members of the public safety departments if they chose to.
Oh.
And those funds actually came out of their uniform allowance and not
Did it?
the general
Okay,
fund.
okay. Any further questions? If not, you need a motion to approve this check register run.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, Rhonda.
And then the balance of the packet that you have is our revenue and expenditure reports, along with the balance sheet information. At this point, we're still running on track with our budget. Later on in this meeting, we'll go through the budget amendments, but the overall total picture is good at this point.
Good work. And Rhonda, thanks again for making the trip to Chicago. I mean,
Well, you know-
Mike, I mean, we're very proud of you and again, what it led to.
Yeah, there was more stress involved because I don't like to fly. So Bruce,
And I understand you have to be here at 5 in the morning, I think. Was-
was up at 4 in the morning to go.
yeah, poor Bruce had to sit next to me on the way there, and then Mark on the way back, and so,
Oh, gosh. Well,
everything went well, and I'm just so very happy.
we're very
for the
proud. We're
city.
very proud of what was able to be achieved in Chicago. Thank you.
One thing I just might add, just because it's kind of funny. When we got on the plane, the stewardess was so nice. Mike and I were sitting together, and we were sitting in virtually the last couple of rows, because it's not that long a flight to Chicago. She brings us each a Bloody Mary. And we're like, I can't drink this because we got a presentation to go. It's like, oh, when do I have to waste a little bottle of vodka?
It's 7 in the morning. Oh, my gosh.
Very much.
Hey, mark the calendar. Got something
yeah.
free on a plane.
I thought maybe Rhonda had got a safe driving award from.
Oh, I was going to say, from AAA.
Not gonna happen. I see her driving to work in the morning. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. As you can see on top of you on your desk is the top 20 calls for service. Very minor activity, nothing to report for the month of December. I did want to comment, I want to thank Marlene for bringing up the issue with the park. Approximately a year ago, I was put on the Park and Harbor Committee because I'm responsible for the hiring of the park rangers. And prior to my arrival here, there was the park rangers were reluctant to inquire with some residents if they came through, especially if they were recognized. And they've kind of bent over backwards to try and make it a family-friendly park, and I think that's exactly what we have. We do, however, do not want, non-residents and kids in the park if they don't belong. And I would encourage any resident who's over there who thinks that there may be a non-resident in the park who may be up to something, to please give public safety a call, because we'd like to know. My park rangers are not police officers. They're friendly people who look at your park pass, and they're very helpful with picnics, etc. But and I've had numerous conversations with Councilman Barrett in regards to the electronic capabilities that are now possible for us, not only with Osh's Park, but with the dog park, as well as with City Hall. Mark and I have looked into the what they call proximity access door openings, So we are looking into those things, and we would encourage any resident to give us a call, but I am looking forward to policing that park so we can, because it is designed for the residents, and that's what it should be for, so. Based on a recommendation in the past by the Finance Committee, Public Safety periodically reviews all of our vendors to ensure that we are receiving the best product, price, and service for our purchases. We just completed one such review regarding our paramedics and their biannual ACLS, Advanced Cardiac Life Support Training. Our paramedics previously had been allowed to use a variety of vendors. This training is somewhat expensive. It runs between $75 and $150 every 2 years, and some were more. And we allowed the paramedics previously to use their own vendors of their choice. Well, we found some pretty significant differences in the cost of the training. So we researched this, and we have selected Select Medical Incorporation as our primary vendor. We receive a group rate at consistent cost prices. So, all of my paramedics now will recertify at one time of the year, which makes bookkeeping a lot easier so I want council to know that we periodically look at our vendors and make sure we're getting the best possible deal. As a follow-up to the information that was provided last week to council on email, we had a significant narcotics arrest on January 11th. In addition to the narcotics that were seized under asset forfeiture, we seized a vehicle and $3,500 in cash. Both the driver and the passenger have been charged with possession with intent to deliver narcotics, and they are pending their preliminary exam. Once again, on behalf of the Public Safety Department, I would like to thank all of those residents for their generosity over the holidays. It's greatly appreciated. They were extremely good to us, and many treats came in for the dispatchers, or for the clerks, public safety officers, and I know as well as for DPW, so we're very grateful. Thank you. And finally, I just wanted to report that our chaplain, Father Rich Bartosik, had his knee surgery on January 4th. He's recovering at home. He's in a lot of pain. I spoke with him the other night, and we hope to have him back on the job soon, so he's doing well. I talked to him the first day after surgery, and he was great. Felt wonderful. 2 days later, it was a little different story.
Drugs had been worn.
But
Anesthetic wore off.
Yeah.
exactly. If you have any questions, I would be happy to try and answer them for you.
Chief, what is the status, or what happens in forfeiture actions? I know we have a claim or a lien on the money that was seized on that prior seizure in the amount of $28,000 or something.
That is going to a circuit court hearing. That's been scheduled. One of the thresholds that they are required to meet is that they're gainfully employed, and they have a legitimate access to, or a legitimate reason to possess that amount of cash. In that particular case, which is not settled yet, most likely we will return the cash, we'll seize the weapon, and the car will be a split. We'll probably get $900 or $1,000 for the car, and he pays the county and he gets the car back.
Okay, so he's allowed to get the cash back?
There's an appeal process that goes to the circuit court, and then they appeal it, and this one, they'll lose everything on this particular current arrest, but this was definitely 5 pounds of marijuana in this particular arrest, and for the benefit of those who didn't see the email, the officer was driving behind the vehicle and smelled marijuana with the windows closed.
Sounds like Cheech and Chong.
Right.
I've never seen a Cheech and Chong movie.
Right.
At any rate, it was a good arrest, and it was so we've removed him.
Oh, again.
The driver was from California, and the passenger was local. So
Not local in Grosse Pointe.
not local, Ferndale. Yes.
Well, great job, Chief. Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Brett, Public Works?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of your Public Works Department. Well, it looks like winter has finally arrived. We had a great fall that lasted well into December and actually after Christmas. But since our last council meeting, we've had the opportunity to salt our roads 5 times. Our overtime hours for winter snow fighting and our amount of salt we used are quite down so far for the year. Hopefully that will not change and we won't make up for it later down the road, so hopefully that number will stay low. Your DPW staff's been working in the bathhouse at the park. We've been scraping the spray-on concrete ceiling off of the 2 outside bathrooms in the bathhouse. It's actually taken quite a long time. We've been working on it a couple weeks, and we actually started priming today. So hopefully for the next week or so we'll have things finished up in those bathrooms. Also, you may have seen some work being done on the fence on the north end of the park. One of our employees, Nick Rudd, who's loves fabricating, has repaired that fence that we can't figure out how old it is, but I know it's got to be 100 years old anyway, or close to it. We had some good ideas earlier. Maybe we could try to find out who that fence was donated from. It's my understanding many years ago when that park was put together, a lot of large estates donated their fence, the wrought iron fence, to put the fence in front of the park. So when you're over there on a leisurely stroll, you may want to take a walk down it. You can see the different types of fencing and where it came from. But anyway, that looks real good. You may want to take a look at it. It's the 5 sections of fence that are north of our north gate that butts up against the Wilson property. I think he did a great job. And currently, Nick is working on one of our garbage trucks. The frame for the garbage packer literally rusted out and disappeared. So he's in the process of making parts and welding them back in, and he's just working out real well doing that. He enjoys it. Let me take a few minutes to talk about water. Jeff in our water department's been working on installing our remote water reading system. We started this project here a couple years ago, and we've been inching along, and we're finally getting to the point where we're starting to get some meters installed. And we've already had a few cases where water usage went beyond parameters that are set when we set up the system. And basically, Jeff gets a little warning that says we have a home that's used a whole lot more water than normal. And this is what gets printed out. You can see a steady line and a big jump up in the usage. And so far, with all the cases, the homeowner has been out of town. We've made a call to the homeowner, and they've been able to get a hold of someone to come and fix the problem. Hence, you can see the drop as you can see exactly when it's fixed. So the system is working not only to keep our records accurate, but it's also helping out our residents when they have issues that they don't know about. Hopefully this will cut down significantly on our high bill complaints, and we look forward to getting this project moving on a little bit faster. Currently we have about 20% of our homes installed with this system, and we look forward to getting those finished up where we have all of our homes with that installed. We've had a couple water main breaks since our last council meeting, one at South Deeplands in Sheldon, another one at South Edgewood and Valentine. Both of those repairs went fairly smooth. Nothing extraordinary on either one of those. Also, I'm sure you've heard a lot of talk about water quality issues on the news lately. I'd just like to take this opportunity to ensure our residents and make it known to the residents and council if there are any issues with water quality that we find out about. This information will be disseminated immediately. This is something we take very serious. We are very transparent on what we work on, and what's good for our residents is good for everyone. I mean, that's just something that we take very seriously. We do send out a water quality report annually, and we've already been in some kind of discussion trying to make things a little bit more easy to understand for the residents. There are other communities that have taken the report that comes from the state and adjusted it to make it easier to understand. That's something that we'll be looking at in the future. But rest assured, if there's water quality issues, we will be made aware of it, or you will be made aware of it immediately. That concludes my report. I really don't have anything else. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them at this time, if I can.
Well, Brett, I followed one of our salt trucks yesterday on my way home. It was quite a drive from the north suburbs, and it was reassuring seeing all that salt, giving me some traction following it. So thanks for your efforts.
Very good, thank you.
Now, for one resident asked me, should they shut off the water if they're leaving for Florida? Should they install one of those on-off levers on their water supply line? And
I don't want to make a recommendation, yes or no. I don't at my house when I leave, but then I'll probably be the first one complaining if something breaks. So, if that's something that they would feel more comfortable with, that would be just fine.
because in that example, somebody wasn't home, there was a break somewhere inside, right?
Both of these cases, that's what happened.
Because we had that happen on Colonial, remember that case? And they weren't home, and it flooded the basement, and,
Yeah, these things happen. This technology has just given us the opportunity to catch them before the next meter read. Can you imagine somebody being in Florida for a month or two and having this running. These cases, I didn't mention the amounts, but in one case, it was $191 in 2 days, and the other case was $330 in 7 days. Well, if we had waited to the next quarter to read that meter and they had been out of town, thousands of dollars, so.
More than their property taxes.
This is working, so thank you.
Well, thanks, Brett, for that report. Bob, Park and Harbor?
Yep. A couple weeks ago, we had a town hall meeting, and good attendance from the residents.
Thanks,
And,
Mike.
We got over 30 ideas that we're gonna start to incorporate. Basically, we're gonna start on February 2nd, working on some of the rules. Basically, we're gonna deal with the tennis policy. Gonna work with the chief on some security issues maybe. See if we can work on some of them. Some things we'll have to wait till the master plan is put together. So hopefully, when it comes to 1st of April, we'll have the tennis guidelines all done, how many can have for a party. You know, there's some parties with over 100 people requested. And with parking issues, if they all brought, if you just had 50 people, 100 people with 50, a husband and wife, you're talking 50 cars. And we just can't handle that kind of cars right now, the parking structure. So hopefully we'll have something, and we're still taking some, I still get some information, either email or verbally. And any recommendations or any new ideas, be sure to free to give us each of the office up here, or my email's is online, so you can send it that way too. Mr. Mayor, that's it for now.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Legal report, Brian?
Yes, thanks. Since the date of the last city council meeting on December 15th, 2015, our firm as city attorney has been engaged in the following activities on behalf of the city. First, we consulted with the city regarding a negotiated cash supplement for city's public service officers under their labor contract. That's an ongoing discussion, and I believe coming to resolution shortly. We've had ongoing correspondence with the legal counsel for the owner of 980 Lakeshore Road regarding a land division request pertaining to their property and the adjoining property owner at 984 Lakeshore Road. We've had consultations with several appraisers regarding several property tax appeals that are pending before the Michigan Tax Tribunal. We've selected an appraiser for at least one of those tax appeals, and we're about to engage him. We are continuing to evaluate zoning requirements, deed restrictions, other legal requirements affecting the potential development of 55 South Deeplands. As you all know, we had a public hearing at which that was discussed in some detail last month. We are also continuing to have consultations with the city regarding litigation issues that are arising in the several mentioned property tax appeals. We also prepared responsive pleadings and filed them in a newly filed property tax appeal, so we were 2, 3, 4, 5 pending now. We consulted with the city regarding Comcast and the Grosse Pointe War Memorials, WMTV cable service issues and obligations under the contract that exist between the several Grosse Pointe communities and the War Memorial. We received and prepared a response to a newly received Freedom of Information Act request from a public interest group looking for some records which were apparently filed with one of the other Grosse Pointes because we have no responsive materials. We met today with the city and Grosse Pointe Yacht Club representatives regarding the yacht club's planned marina construction activities that will potentially affect the city's municipal marina facility. And those discussions are, they've been going on, and they'll be ongoing for some time yet. I don't think any decisions really have been made. We consulted with the city and continue to consult with the city regarding the city's acquisition and resale of tax reverted properties and sold by Wayne County pursuant to tax foreclosure sale and what's due Wayne County and what the city can realize on those sales. We're consulting, this is a fairly new, it's new and not new. It came up a couple years ago and then disappeared, but consulting with the city regarding the city's potential abandonment of a public alleyway between a couple of the properties that are within the city limits. And I don't wanna, lastly, I don't wanna steal any thunder here. I'll let City Manager Mark Wolenweber talk about it, but we are in preliminary consultation with the city regarding a potential relationship with the cable service provider.
Well stated, Brian. Without stealing. Well stated. Well, very good. Any questions of Brian? Well, Mark,
Well, I'll take that item first. I am very excited to indicate, and I did have to call Dr. Ray Rahi to talk to him about this. Every time I see him, he asks about WOW. And I got a call from the Midwest VP today, and he has authority to proceed with construction in Grosse Pointe Shores. They've allocated several $million for this. They're going to talk to us, but the one issue Brian and I were talking about, and this will necessitate some action by council, and I need to write them a letter that we're willing, so please tell me that if you disagree with us. We have a minor amendment to our peddler ordinance that will allow them to market that, and it will generate probably some complaints, but we'll work with them, but it will necessitate an action by council to amend that ordinance. So if you're unwilling to amend it, we're not going to get WOW, but several years ago we discussed this, and I think Brian at that point had actually prepared the language, but it's just a minor amendment, and we'll be singling out a utility that's subject to federal and state statute by granting of a special franchise. So this will not open the door for everyone, but and I know the chief and I have talked about this. We'll get some calls, but like we do, we can't stop either elected officials from knocking on doors. The only thing that they will have to abide by will be those that have stickers on their door that says no solicitations, and they'll have to get them another way, but I think they're willing to do that. But this is really exciting news, and it just came out of the blue, because I think I've written them on behalf of the city at least 5 or 6 times over the last several years. So that's the neatest thing. I want to mention, when Rhonda talked about the Social Security tax refunds, this is work that she did to make it easy. It's a pain in the neck to do all this paperwork, to make it easier for the employees, because it necessitates new findings for every quarter involved for those employees, and so that they didn't have to go back and file amended tax returns and stuff. She did all this work on their behalf, and they are very appreciative. But this results in an additional $27,000 to the city that we get back. And on the employees' standpoint, the greatest thing for them, besides getting the money back, this is equivalent to a 6.5% take-home pay increase for those affected employees. And we now have one DPW, well, he's covered anyway. He is covered by Social Security. But I think it's 7 public safety officers out of a total of 17, I think that's right, that now are in the defined contribution program, not the defined benefit program. So that's really pretty neat. Besides seeing sticks out in front, and of course, this is better late than never, but we thought they were never coming to do this. They actually have either poured some bases and ran some of the conduit for the redo of the whole intersection. So maybe in all of our lifetime put together, we'll see this project completed. There wasn't at one point, the vendor was not responsive to the engineers or the county, and we think we weren't sure if they're going bankrupt or what, but they finally showed up, did some work, and it's, thank goodness, finally underway. We have received, and I think we forwarded this to council, but we have copies upstairs of the Grosse Pointe Public School System Strategic Plan. So anybody that wants to see it, we have copies here. We can print them out one, or they can see it upstairs. And council, I think we sent the email to you. If we didn't, I'll make sure we do. The chief's been involved with, and there's been some changes in Grosse Pointe Woods about, they received a grant for the lockup, for a joint lockup facility between us, the woods, and the farms. And I think even though there's some changes going on with their manager, Skip Fincham, administrator, retiring, I think last Friday was his last day, because several of us went to the little party they held for him. We'll be seeing some more information on that shortly. They engaged an architect from an engineering firm to determine what could be done for the grant money they were authorized. And our commitment to date, which we haven't paid anything, was we would pay for part of the engineering study. So I think it'll be a three-way to pay the engineers, but they may be able to recover that as part of the grant money, so we may or may not have any expenses associated with it. As you know, this has been an issue of concern to our insurance carrier and others about the existing lockup facility and arrangements we have at the farms. And farms is, I believe, also on board for this. One of the things the city attorney mentioned also has to do with the donation we received from a private individual here in the community on behalf of his family, and it had to do with monies going toward the replacement of the firearms. And so very close to final arrangements with the two unions, the Public Safety Command and the Public Safety Officers Union, which will allow them, we have replaced all the guns, as Rhonda said, that's been paid for, so we have standardized all guns, and the resident was very appreciative of the work that Public Safety had provided to a member of their family, a very elderly member, and he wanted to make sure that something went back to the officers. So we've arranged for them to purchase the antiquated weapons that were replaced, and they're using those funds to do so. So that's worked out, I think, really nicely. Mayor knows that last week we had the mayor and managers meeting last Thursday. We talked about a request I sent on behalf of the communities of the War Memorial to know what they're spending, the franchise fees that they get, the 2%, they get a smaller percentage from Comcast for the public educational government channels that they operate. And I got I will send council the most recent communication, but their records from verbal information provided to me in a meeting was that they lost $40,000 on the deal. So whatever they're spending, I don't know the total amount because they didn't provide that, and they still haven't provided, and they're not sure that they have to provide it to us. However, I think it's the city's position that we'd really like to know on behalf of residents that they're using funds generated from everybody's cable bills toward some of their services. And I got part of that information, and I'll share that with council this week. We do have a meeting tomorrow afternoon with the Albert Kahn Group, who provided us a price for an update of the master plan. So, we're gonna need to beat them up because we thought the price was way too high. I'm only sorry the chair of our finance committee is not going with us, because he usually does a better job than I do. So we need our two council members that are going to, the three of us will triple team them and hopefully get that to a reasonable number. The other thing the city attorney mentioned is at Larned Lane. That is a city street, but one of our residents who lived in another location moved to that, and we're exploring the opportunity. And we're going to need some communication from both neighbors that are affected. We have a storm sewer that runs down underneath that street, and it is a platted street for at least part of the way. But the residents have noticed in that area that those people who know about it go park in their driveway, and they walk to the lake and put their ice shanty in right there, because it's a public street, and it just continues all the way to the water. So it may be something that we would have the ability to dispose of the property, but there's some charter issues that we gotta look at, and things like that, to see if we can't help them in that case. And the last item on 55 South Deeplands, I did hear back from the potential purchasers. The city attorney and I have talked about a number of issues associated with that, whether they can act as agent of the current owners, which is the bank, or not, but they have decided, from what we understand, and we did hear from one of the affected residents about this, that they are not on the upcoming planning commission, and because there was no business, the planning commission for next Tuesday has been rescheduled. They may or may not. They're in the process of, they told me, trying to work with residents as well as assemble some of the information that members of the planning commission would need, such as traffic study, and we're of course assembling some of the same information from our engineers as to the effects, capacities that we have on water, sewer, storm sewer, etc. I think that's my long list for this evening.
Well, good, Mark. In fact, regarding Deeplands, someone told me that the developer, are they going forward on the project in Grosse Pointe Farms on Ridge Road?
I don't know that.
That was-
I'll check that to make sure.
Okay.
I'll find out about that.
And Mark, I was wondering, have we heard about the historic designation or potential historic designation for this building? This being an Albert Kahn building, I know we were talking about.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about this. That was one of the projects for our intern for the fall term. He provided it some information. There are some things, a number of hoops that the city would have to jump through, and that it also included the creation of a board, historical commission board of some sort. I know you had talked about doing that, but I'll get to council and we should schedule this for further discussion at an upcoming meeting as well. We're not eligible to apply for any of the grants that we know of until we know first that the state was going to kick some more money in. They put $600,000 in for the entire state last year for replacement of windows, that kind of updates, physical updates. And that's the first money that they put into that project in several years. So if they are putting some additional funds in, it may be worth making the application, creating the designation. If there is no funding left, and that's one thing we weren't able to determine, then it may not be worth doing it until we know that they're going to put some more funding in.
Okay, because
But I'll flag that.
I know the building I used to be in for 23 years was a historic building. There's two pathways. You can go through the Federal Department of Interiors and get federal designation, and you also go through the State Historical Society, and get state designation. And in our case, we did both, so that it allows you to make improvements and get federal tax credits. But here, we're not worried about tax credits. We don't pay tax. Essentially, we're not a taxpayer. But if we're allowed to get grants, I just don't see there being a downside. It's an elaborate process, I know.
Yeah, the only designation, there may be two. I mean, the local historical commission, there are a number of questions like that we ask the state staff. Could we do this jointly with another community who have already established this? Could we do this jointly with the Grosse Pointe Historical Society by maybe allocating a member or two onto their board to do certain things? They have the right to designate certain properties, and I think we have that designation here. But to go to the state level or the federal level is pretty extensive. The Ford House is in the process of obtaining the federal designation, which is the highest, and I think the Yacht Club has either applied for the state designation and may be in the process of getting it. We're considering applying to the federal as well.
Okay, good. Well, any other questions of Mark, or? Again, a busy month, Mark, thanks. And again, thanks for going to Chicago to, I mean, I
Even we
want-
didn't get a Bloody Mary, so. Could have used one after the meeting, though.
Well,
We didn't.
for all that grilling. No old business, new business is our proposed budget amendments. 21 pages of,
Yeah, Rhonda has prepared, and there's a brief summary attached to these. This is in keeping with the audit comments and the state requirements that we adopt an activities budget, not a line item budget, but within the various activities, Rhonda's done her best talking to staff people to come up with estimates for those. So there's a whole series of those, and this was, the Finance Committee hasn't seen the actual, these actual changes, but discussed the need to do this and the areas that we were looking at. And a lot of these have to do with the change in the pension actuarial assumption resulted in most of the departments that have personnel, some going up, some going down based upon the requirements necessary in that area. And there are a few others. You could summarize those. I probably stole everything you were gonna say.
No, that's quite all right. Now that we have, 6 months of actual data for this fiscal year, we can look at the budget and see where we've overspent in an expense item, or maybe that we have more revenue than we originally budgeted for, because a lot of this is just unknown information. We're just assuming, basing on, for the most part, on a 5-year average, looking back. So, like on our revenue side, I've made adjustments to our permits and inspection fees for the building department, our ambulance fees, our Michigan Municipal Risk Authority rebate, basically. Those kind of items. On the revenue side, if it's showing the difference in a credit amount, that's actually increasing that line item. On the expenditure side, yes, most of the changes are related to the pension contribution amount. When we put together the budget, we knew that based on changes to those two assumptions, actuarial wise, that we were going to see an increase in our pension contribution. Once that was all calculated and using the last fiscal year's actual wages, it turned out, for the most part, our pension contribution was a little bit less than what we had budgeted for. So I've made some changes within those accounts there. Also, with the public safety officer that retired earlier this fiscal year, actually there was an increase in his sick bank payout than what I originally thought. So we need to make adjustments there. Was there anything in particular, looking this over, that you had any questions regarding?
I know the auditor considers this just good housekeeping, and so it's just a matter of form. And about the pension, the big difference was the pension. The Pension Commission met last year about this time, and there's a lot of articles in the Wall Street Journal, the local papers, the financial papers about determining what your interest rate assumption is in your pension plan. Your pension plan's a long-term plan, and it's designed to look really, you're looking at the lives of the current employees, including the lives of the retirees. So it's designed to look 30 to 50 years in the future, and so you have to figure out what interest rate's going to be effective today to apply 20 years from now, 30 years from now, and lately, with all the attention with the city of Detroit for their Chapter 9 bankruptcy, they were forced to go from 7.75% to 6.75%. That's the interest rate assumption. That's essentially your investment rate of return, what you anticipate your investment rate of return to be from year to year. We were using 7.5% for many years, back when you can go to Flagstar and get a 6% CD. That wasn't out of line. Or you could buy a bond, at 4% or 5%. But the banks are paying nothing now, and bonds are paying less. You heard today from discussion with our bond counsel that the interest rate on our new bond over the next 25 years is going to be 2.75% from us as a AAA rated credit instrument. So we made the decision, and it was a tough decision. This is bitter medicine to take. And we made a decision to go from 7.5% to 7%. They call that 50 basis points. And we were told at the time by our actuary that it would increase the cost, the employer contribution, about $100,000. And we were paying about $225,000 before. So we were going to budget $325,000. We also then lowered our salary increase assumption from, I think, 4% to 3%. And that was a favorable variance, but net, our contribution went up from $224,000, I think, to $292,000, about a $75,000 difference. But, of course, on the other side, then, you had to look long-term. It also affected our liability, long-term liability to the plan, which is what the actuary looks in looking at the overall health on a long-term basis. So most of these adjustments relate to the pension plan, but mostly because in the middle of the year, and good thing Bruce isn't here today, because after we made that decision, Bruce, as the chair of the finance committee, called me or cornered me, maybe both. And he said, "What are you doing?" But it's the right thing to do. In fact, there's pressure to even keep lowering it. I mean, as our inflationary expectations in this economy are being decreased, and as the interest rate environment is remaining rather static at a very low end, it's not going up. And so there's pressure on all pension plans, defined benefit plan. To my knowledge, I think we're the only one, Mark, I think, of all the Grosse Pointe plans, there's 5 different Grosse Pointe plans, to have a 7% investment rate return assumption. I think the other plans are using 7.5. But again, it caused some budget adjustments, and that's one of the things that we're going to be asked to approve. So, I don't know, Bob, you want to add to that? Or, I know Bob's on the finance committee, and they meet, on a regular basis.
We've addressed these issues on a continuing basis at all of our meetings over the last several months. These are the final numbers, that a culmination of those discussions. As you indicated, we did not have a finance committee meeting yet this month. Our next one is scheduled in February. But these are really a housekeeping project here. But you did throw us a curveball with the pension.
Well, it didn't come with any fanfare or warning, and that wasn't really fair, probably.
But it was anticipated in the budget when we finally put it together, and the adjustments are just in here now. They're being materialized.
Hey, Ron, the adjustments that were made in the building and grounds and the parks and recreation, those 2 large amounts in repairs, those already hit. Now we're adjusting up.
Yes.
Yes.
What happened? What were those?
Part of it was the finishing up the dock issues that we had some settlement on with the vendors that provided some of the equipment in the past. Part of it was the hiring an extra person and the need to have staffing available on weekends besides the gate guards, and to try to sweep the seaweed out depending upon the wind conditions and stuff. Rhonda, was there something else special? I think those were the...
Yeah, I know there is something more that was not in the original budget that we have performed.
Could it be the bathhouse, the exterior, the restrooms? I know
That
were.
was part of it, but I'm having a hard time.
There was some other, we had a repair, we had to bring in the vendor for the splash pad, and then the equipment that we had contemplated in the budget for the hand dryers and and the project to put all the new dividers, yes, the plastic dividers.
Okay, yeah, no, everything looks, it's all basically pension. Those are the only 2 that were really kind of oddballs.
Yeah, come in June, you're going to see a lot of adjustments, because that's when we want to do the final housekeeping for the year, to make sure that each line item, each department is balanced out, so that when our audit is occurring, that we're not, even if we spend $10 more over in this one account, it gets to be a bad mark it has to be reported to the state, and we don't want that, so, there'll be a lot more
It's
adjustments.
not
Run
only
my
an auditor,
business
it's
like-
not only an auditor's requirement, it's a state requirement. You
No, I
gotta have it.
understand, yeah.
Your end has gotta be right to the penny, so it's not a
Right.
question of doing it arbitrarily.
No, I know, that's what I said, I wish I could run my business like that.
Well, I think the auditor suggested in the review of our internal controls that we have either quarterly or, periodic adjustments to reconcile, so that at the very end of the year, you're not dealing with the entire year, but you're.
Right, yeah, and just if something were to come up in the next couple of months that was totally not planned for in the budget, then we're gonna bring that back to you and say, okay, we definitely need this to be changed for the year.
Right.
And another thing that will be coming up before the June changes is that we need to add a new fund for our forfeiture account. It is right now being tracked in our trust and agency fund, but I need to separate that out into a special revenue fund. So that'll be another very interesting item to budget,
On the if
expected
come,
revenues
make
of
more
forfeiture
seizures.
funds coming in,
So it's like escrow. It'll be escrowed in our budget. Okay, good. I invite a motion to approve these budget adjustments.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the second item, Mark, do you want to?
Sure. This is an item, didn't understand this, but several years ago, there were changes made that changed the way the pension was contributed to by and eventually paid out for the 6 non-union employees, 3 of which are retired, 3 of which have not yet retired, but are still accruing time in the pension system. And when this came to the Finance Committee, this came up, I didn't understand this until it was explained to me, and it really left a hard feeling, and this was, sometimes you put in place changes that you expect to get with the other union groups. And there was some talk that was the case, but again, just after the chief came and then I came later, we did something different as part of we actually got rid of a command officer's arbitration, and we settled with each of the units, and we really took all new employees outside of, this means we were able to close, in essence, the defined benefit pension system. But that still left, in essence, a small penalty that was paid by the 6 non-union employees, because you don't negotiate with them. You can, and actually this was quoted to me that someone just said, well, why did you do this, when they were discussing this with administration at the time, and the guy said, because we can, because I can. And so we talked about what's the opportunity to fix this for the employees, and it was your suggestion that this is a council action item, doesn't have to be acted upon this evening, and Bruce will explain this better than perhaps I can at the February meeting, but that it was good so that there were no more surprises. In this case, this does affect the pension contributions the city would make. And the chair of the pension board, we met this morning for an update. I know you can provide perhaps some of the financial update. We discussed this morning, and I did review this with our labor attorney as well, that while it's not an action of the pension board it is within their purview. I mean, they're responsible for administering any changes that council would make, just like council, and we are required to, if there's a change in some of the actuarial assumptions, as was discussed earlier, the city has to, it affects the contributions we may make, up or down. So it was discussed at the pension, and the chair of our pension board, Bruce Campbell, has just done a great job in terms of suggesting that if we amortize this instead of over the 20-year period, we'll avoid substantial interest that would be paid on this. So they approved a resolution suggesting it would be, they understand that our pension contribution go up. I think it's about 6,000 and change in the first year, and it's got a net total of about 40,000, I think, over the 5-year period. And that they understand what this does, and it makes those employees who took the hit for that period between 2010 and now whole. And one of the things that was pointed out, that this was a minor effect, not that 40,000 total is minor, it is, but it's something we could afford in the budget, and it restores the employees, the administrative ones that were part of the pension system were generally tried to be kept at the same level as the police command, with the exception of the Social Security that's not paid for by the police command. Instead, this put them behind and even lower than the AFSCME group. So this restores them at just to the level of contributions that the AFSCME employees currently get, except for the one who's a new hire and is in the defined contribution program. So at the mayor's suggestion, we want to talk about this with everyone this evening, and on the basis of also talking with the pension board, and you will get next month the minutes of we'll send them before that. But again, hopefully an action item for council next time. Mayor participated in the meeting, but of course, based on the state law, cannot vote on the same item twice. So he was abstained at the pension board, but it did pass unanimously this morning. Chuck, is there anything else you might want to add to it? Yeah. Yeah.
And we did review it at some length in the
Yes.
Finance Committee and have approved it, feel it should be definitely implemented, subject to, of course, the Pension Commission and the council.
And we learned a lot about the pension today from Bruce, our chairperson, because he said that technically it's not within the purview of the pension commission, because the council would be restoring a fringe benefit that was taken away, so it's a council action. But I just thought that it should be in front of the pension commission first. I really did see this properly within the jurisdiction of the pension commission, so that they know, because we have to make decisions based on our actuarial experience and our funding experience. So, you know, in 2010, our employer contributions to the defined benefit plan were $545,000. And then a year ago, they were $223,000. They went up to $292,000 just this very year. If we adopt this change, our employer contribution goes up $11,390 in the first year, and we're planning on amortizing this over 5 years. Our actuarial liability goes up $49,000 as calculated by the actuary, based on a 7% rate of return. So when we made the change from 7.5% to 7%, that was a pretty big hit to the actuarial liability. Our liability overall now is at $21 million. So this will add 49,000, just under 50,000 to the actuarial liability. That's what they measure against your market value of assets. The timing maybe isn't terrific in terms of what's going on in the stock market, because it's leading our money managers at the first hour of our meeting this morning at 7:30 dealt with the vagaries of the stock market, the mostly downward pressure on stocks, and must give them fits at night. So, but again, we're restoring a benefit that was taken away. They were singled out, I guess, and but I wanted the council on board so we know what's going forward. our number next year will be somewhere in excess of $300,000 for the employer contribution to defined benefit plan. And when it was at 550,000, it exceeded 10% of our general fund balance. It was a now it's more manageable. The plan is frozen. There's no new admittees into the plan. So it's a frozen plan, or it's not suspended because the people that are in are still participating in the plan. But all the new hires, particularly in public safety or any other departments, are in the defined benefit or defined contribution plan, which is essentially a glorified 401k plan. We make the contributions, and there's no contingent liability. Well, the defined benefit plan, the contingent liability, you don't know. And but I wanted this to be heard by the pension commission, because it affects the funding of the plan and the liability of the plan when we meet with the actuary. And I wanted the council to be aware of what this means to the budget. So, Finance Committee has approved it, I think. I wasn't at the meeting. And, like I said, we're in good financial shape. I mean, we have a great bond rating now. So, I mean, and again, Bruce will be here next month. So we're not gonna vote on it today, but it's gonna be slated for a vote in the February meeting. I mean, we've waited 5 years already, or 6 years, so another month. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood what we're doing. Again, by restoring this benefit, it will affect the pension plan, and the pension plan and our post-retirement health care plan are an important component of our general finances. So, I think that's all, I think, Mark.
We'll bring it back next month, but if anybody has any questions about the details, Rhonda or I can try to answer them. And this is not this is a give back of something that was taken away in the process of setting up negotiations, or parameters for negotiations, was never achieved with the other groups. So this restores those individuals to basically the same level of the pension of all but one of the employees that are in the AFSCME unit, in essence the DPW employees. So, and I think it was the feeling of the pension board, certainly in my case in terms of recommending this, and of the finance committee, that this was the fair thing to do, and that we make sure we have enough in the budget to cover this. And we amortize it over 5 years, which saves a very significant amount of interest.
And I remember 5 years ago, I think we were faced with arbitration, binding arbitration with our public safety, at least, I think that's correct, and even a DPW. And I think the manager was trying to develop internal comparables. Arbitration is about, kind of like what's fair, what are you doing for the other employees? So I think that maybe it was the precursor of helping the arbitrator make a favorable decision in which way the city manager may have wanted. I think that's fairly stated. So, okay. Well, the next item is the item C, page 75 to 77.
Yeah, C and D are both items, again, normally this is handled in November or December, but again, with lack of staff or anybody, we haven't even gotten these resolutions in the format that Wayne County, when we asked them about this, we think we're gonna change the format. Well, this allows us, in essence, the authority to work on Lakeshore, in the portion of the road that's under the county jurisdiction, which is south of Vernier, on both these items. And we want to have council do this. One of the things we've asked Lynn to do, and she's real good at doing this, is there are certain routine items like this that come up every year around the same time. And this one didn't, because we never got a notice from the county. Because I don't know if there's anybody there to send a notice, or if they even remember that they haven't done it. But I shouldn't probably say that. Please don't quote that. But we just want to put this in place. If there's any changes in the format of that resolution, I'll let council know, but I want to put this on record that we'll at least have the paperwork in place that we should for this.
we need a separate motion for each one, Mark?
Why don't have the same people do both, and you just vote them separately?
Okay. I need a motion.
Second.
Second. Okay, for item number C, annual pavement restoration permit, need a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Is there support? Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And item D, annual permit for special events, which comes up periodically, like Mark said. Need a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good. Item E is Marshall Landscape, a 3-year service agreement proposal.
Brought this before council, well, this is, the dollar value of this is usually within staff's authority. I think this is a remarkable, one, we have a really good working relationship with a local resident who does this. But it's pretty amazing when someone comes in and says, I want to do the same work that I've done for you in the past. We use them for special activities and it's outlined. And plus I'm going to give you a 5% discount over the rates that he quoted 3 or 4 years ago on it. So I just wanted the council to be aware that while this is generally within our authority, the agreement, we actually spend $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 for this, and sometimes there's special activities. And I can't tell you the amount of time that this person who volunteers on so many of our committees has helped us with. Just, we had someone complaining about one of the islands in an area. We went over and looked at it. He had to do some extra work on it and specialize in, to make sure that the grass grew and stuff like this. And it just, you know, it's again, a contribution. But this is pretty remarkable that value of one of our vendors goes down by 5% in over 5 years, 6 years in essence. So we'll be paying less now than we paid before on unit prices. And I just wanted council to be aware and approve and authorize us to go ahead with the project. And
Plus, it adds areas that weren't previously covered.
There's a few.
Sunnydale and Oxford are now
Yep.
being covered.
Yep.
Well, the total cost for the services and committed to on an annual 3-year basis is $9,880. I need a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And thank you, Brett, for doing it on a very nice budget basis. Public comment? Is there any public comment? Yeah, please come to the podium. It's good for the blood flow.
James Case, I live on 525 Sheldon, and I just want to, I was a little surprised to hear the report from the city manager on the 55 Deeplands matter, that the developer is working with the residents. The only communication with residents was the meeting at the yacht club, pardon me, and it was contentious but polite, I think. The impression of the residents was we were underwhelmed. Don't believe it's in the best interests, certainly of the neighborhood, certainly not of the city. And we just want to let you know that, again, since that time, there has been no communication whatsoever with the residents. So I don't know where that information is coming from, but if that's what's being represented by the developer from the residents' perspective, that is simply incorrect. Again, my impression from the presentation was that, again, they very kind of a dictatorial kind of presentation where we were told that apparently the way we've chosen to live in single-family homes in a community like this is no longer appropriate. I appreciate the architect's vision and how things should be done in his viewpoint, but I think from, again, the residents' perspective and hopefully from the community's perspective, that's not necessarily everybody else's perspective either. And you know, we are interested to hear if there are going to be modifications to the proposal that has been made. But again, my impression was they were very underprepared to talk about the economics of the project. They had, despite the fact that typically in projects like this, and just so you know my background, I'm a construction lawyer, so I have some knowledge of how projects get put together. And Bob can attest to that. He and I used to be, excuse me, Councilman Gazelle. We were partners for many, many years. You know, when you look at the cost of the project, the costs that they haven't even considered, and then the cost that they intend to try to, or they're projecting that these units can be sold for, I don't believe the project is going to work. And I hope that again, I want to see the presentation to the Planning Commission, but I hope that the council looks at that, because the last thing we want is a project that is overpromised and then not constructible, or getting halfway through. That's not going to do anybody in the community any good, in our judgment. The other thing that I was a little surprised at to hear, again, rumors run rampant with these kind of things, and I think one of the ways that the program has been, or this development has been promised, is that it's for the benefit of seniors and so on and so forth. And it was pretty clear that, to me anyway, that the projected audience or purchasers for this is not just limited to seniors. It's really they're going to try to sell to anybody they possibly can. So I think to try to portray the project in this manner is perhaps a little bit disingenuous on the part of the developer. So anyway, I don't want to belabor this. It's late. I know everybody's probably tired of hearing about this. People I know will have continued to call and the rest, but I just wanted to let the council know again that from the perspective of the residents, we have not heard from them, and which is a shame. Because again, if they have other ideas, if they have good ideas, at least from my viewpoint, and I've tried to convey this to my neighbors as well, that it bears listening to. But when we don't hear anything, when we again, the presentation I deem to be a little condescending. Architects sometimes tend to be that way a little bit. They have a vision, and if it's their vision, and if anybody disagrees with that vision, then they're wrong. Well, you know, everybody has opinions, but we are willing to talk to these people. I hope they do talk to us, but up till now, there has been no discussion, and I wanted to just make that clear to the council.
Did the developer speak to you at the presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
The developer, Mr. Foster was there. His partner from Philadelphia was there. They had, it appeared to me, just maybe the day before, been in touch with Connell Construction, Connell Development, you know, local. But again, they had no sense of what the total costs for moving the project forward were, what their soft costs were going to be. Again, these numbers of selling these units for $850 to $1.5 million, with no special amenities, no health facility, and the rest. There was some. Somebody said, "Well, you know, if you want to come and buy my house for $1.5 million right now, I'm all ears." Yeah. So, but again, I don't know if I think I've pretty much summed up how the residents feel, and again, we're willing to listen, and we have no desire to create enemies of these people. But again, I want to say we were underwhelmed, and again.
Jim, you had, I know your neighborhood group has retained an attorney. Do you know if there's been any communication there between their?
The only communication, Bob, that I am aware of, and again, Alan Broad has been pretty good about communicating with me, is that we did receive, or John Cameron from Dickinson received a communication from, and I can't remember the attorney's name, from Miller Canfield, who represents Comerica. And the questions that were asked were, would the group be willing to allow the property to be subdivided into 4 parcels? I'm just a construction lawyer. I don't know what the purpose of that is. I'd have to look at it. We'd have to study it. And then the second question was, would the neighborhood group be willing to make an offer of purchase? And which some of the neighbors I know are and are willing to consider.
I've heard that proposal from some of the neighbors, yes.
Yeah, so that is something I think that, would be taken into consideration. I had hoped, honestly, to not come to the meeting tonight, to go to a different meeting at the country club where there's an improvement going on there. I'm a member of the committee there that's working on that, but Ed Russell is a member of that, and I wanted to talk to Ed about what prospects or thoughts he had on that and whether there might be some interest there, because I think that in my judgment, the group would be best served by getting a well-known and respected builder, developer involved in a project like that. I'm not qualified to undertake that kind of program. But anyway, that's where we are right now. I wanted to report that. Again, I'm not here to cause trouble or yell and scream. I just hope that again, I appreciate what the developer may be saying, but I wanted you to understand at least what I believe the majority group of the residents, where we are right now.
Well, I'm glad to hear Comerica's doing something anyway.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Trying
so
to.
I think they are. I think they are. And again, if something can be put together, I don't think it's out of the question that it would be. But there's obviously a lot of issues involved in that kind of thing. It's not just buying the property, but.
No. Well, thanks for coming and thanks for speaking.
you.
We appreciate that.
I want everybody to realize we want to be reasonable and we respect what all of you are doing about this and intend to work with you as far as is concerned.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Oh, Mark?
One thing, I did talk to Lynn Best. She called the day after the normal date for the submission for the planning commission and asked about that. And I told her we had not, but I had heard from the developer, and this is what he told me. But I did tell her, if she has people, we sent a notice to those people who are residents, 1 per family, that signed the initial listing, and she was going to get to us any additional people that have signed since that time, so we can send them notice. So instead of the normal, we'll send the official notice if and when we get a formal application to have a meeting, or we're going to send it to everybody. So
We would
just so they know.
really appreciate that.
not a
Because
problem.
we heard the same thing. Again, they're ostensibly undertaking a traffic study. I mean, I think I know where that's going to come back. But again, I'm interested in seeing engineering studies. I was the one that reported the water main break on South Deeplands in Sheldon, and I'm concerned about the ability and infrastructure to handle this and what more might need to be done and that kind of thing. So, again, we're all willing to listen and be reasonable. So I just want to let everybody know and thank you.
Well, thanks for coming. We appreciate your
Thanks for
comments.
listening, and I
Okay.
didn't mean to take.
No.
Thank you.
Any more public? Okay, good.
Hi, name's Barani, and I'm on 46 Fort Croft. And as Mr. Case,
Yes.
right? Yep, as pointed out, I have like a couple of observations and comments. One is congratulations to all the team which worked to get our AAA. It helps all the residents. I mean, obviously when our interest rates go down, right? And one more observation is maybe there could be some way to inform the residents of water main breaks, like a scroll on our website, or you know, that there is or for example, on an Excel alert or something like that. Yeah, so we couldn't get it though, that's why we had to call in to find out, but if it went out, great, and we'll check it out next time, yeah. And thanks for taking care of that really quick. And the second observation is on the Deeplands property, as Mr. Case has pointed out, I mean, we are trying to be reasonable here, and we are all for sensible development. And as you said, the first, during the presentation, it was $1 million to $2.5 million estimate. Then a week later, it came down to 800,000 to 1.5. So they're all over the place. And it really doesn't develop a confidence with the neighbors when you're really trying to do that. And during their presentation, all they presented was their phase 1, until I came back up here and looked at the big things. We didn't even realize there was a phase 2 of 5 more units. Okay, and so that becomes 35. So it speaks disingenuous right from the beginning when you make so many mistakes right from the bat. And 2,000 square foot attached wall townhomes out for $1 million. They really, I mean, Chicago Navy Pier area, well, you get less than that.
California?
Yeah. So, and again, as I said, most of it would be according to our vision, city plans vision. They showed out the numbers of like what our average age group of our city is, like 51 years, I think. That's what they said. And that it would fit in exactly with our group, like who want to downsize from their homes and want to go. My wife's a geriatrician. We know people are not climbing 3 stories tall homes to downsize. I mean, really. I mean, come out with the truth, what you intend to, or have a better plan. And I just want to ask you, have you guys seen the plan, obviously, which is up, right? And just a simple question, who's here, which one of you is in agreement with townhomes?
Well, our job is to, sir, to listen to the residents. I mean, we have zoning, and, you know, obviously, many lawyers were at the last meeting. I mean, they know all about zoning, so, I mean, our concept of what that zone was is single family, I believe.
Yes.
And so, I mean, that's what we gotta live with, you know, and we heard different things. I know the number kept changing. I you know, no building experience, but someone said, well, it's not on the golf course. It's not on the water.
Yep.
And they're asking, what price? 1.2, 1.4? You're not on the golf course. You're not on the water. So, and again, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we had the concept here. The concept was dropped off in early November. In fact, on the day of our last election, it was dropped off that morning, and I went upstairs, and but like one of the neighbors on right by you said to me, yeah, but I want to know how close it is to my back wall. I want to know if I can see it. And the concept is a concept. You know, there's no dimensions and, you know, boundary lines. So he couldn't tell. I mean, he was being open-minded. He said to me, he called. Believe me, we've gotten a lot of phone calls. And it's been the source of a lot of discussions. But he says, I just want to know, is it 50 feet from my property line? Is it 75 feet? Because the side back setbacks, you know, weren't stated anywhere, the building plan.
I appreciate, I mean, all of you guys listening to our comments. I think what we expect is not just listening to it, rather than acting on our requests. As you know, we're living in Grosse Pointe Shores, and you know, that's, I appreciate all the time you guys volunteer, really. I mean,
well,
I appreciate it. But as I said, the guys are not, they're all over the place. And it doesn't, a condo of 2,000 square foot, just 2 blocks down, Grosse Pointe Woods on Crooks Road, you guys can look up, $350,000.
Well, at the end of the day, we're all neighbors.
Yeah.
We all are all neighbors. I live on Woodland Shore. I'm just 1 block away. And we have to make decisions that are in the best interest of the city. I mean, I can't repeat that more. But that's it. That's the test of our decision-making. And we need to hear from the public. We need to, you know, I know when they first approached Mark, our manager, he basically said to have a public hearing, I think. And you wanted them to meet the residents and to see what the reaction would be. And then, you know, then we can make a decision. But our decision, I mean, that's our standard. That's our, is it good for the city? And so, you know, I think that's, I speak for council, and that's how we make our decisions. And, but we're all neighbors. I live a block away from you, you know, and you see me walking my dog probably. But, so I don't know if that answers your question, but.
No, I mean, it kind of does, but also, again, it kind of doesn't answer in terms of like whether condos are good for Grosse Pointe Shores isn't what. It doesn't answer, but.
But we don't have, yeah.
I completely, shall I say, agree with your position, and I think we're all trying to be neutral here and be sensible. What we request is a sensible development. That's what we'll all for.
Well, one of your residents said, you know, I forgot exactly how he said it. He said, 8 units, I'm all in. You know, I forgot his name, but he said 8 units, and he said that 3 or 4 times. 8 units, I'm all in. He says, because it'll balance, he used the word balance, and that was the word he used, the neighborhood. We heard from the lady across the street, was that Lynn? Who said that she's terrified of the traffic, you know? I mean, I don't know, you know, if they're doing a traffic study or whatever, or, you know, and it, you know, who do you hire, you know? I mean, it's just a battle of the experts now, you know, right? So, but we're gonna be very deliberate in what goes through we have not been presented with a concrete plan. First, it has to go to the planning commission. They have jurisdiction of this. The planning commission is really exclusive jurisdiction of the initial plans. They have to make a recommendation. Alan Broad sits on the planning commission. He already said he would recuse himself. Okay, that's appropriate. Because he can't, you know, like I said, he's affected immediately, you know. And he looked good on TV when I saw him on TV. You know. But it's, you know, I mean, again, we welcome public input. And we got a lot last meeting, and I think that was good. We were not invited to the Grosse Pointe Yacht Club. I didn't get a card, or I didn't even see it until someone brought it at the last meeting. And
Right. And one more thing, Happy New Year.
Thank you.
well, thank you. Any more public comment? I mean, this was good. I mean, this is why we have public comment, because these are issues that, I mean, you've sat here for 2 hours, you know, listening to us deal with other issues, but ready to go, you know, to talk about something that was important to you, important to your family. And because it affects you, it affects us as your neighbors. So, you know, we appreciate that. Council member comments, Bob?
Just wish everybody a happy new year and a successful and healthy new year. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Good. Tina?
Well, Happy New Year to all. I just wanted to touch base a little bit. I am the liaison to the Grosse Pointe Improvement Foundation, and they had a meeting last week that I attended, and just wanted to touch base on a couple really quick things there because it's late and we all want to go home. And that is, number one is there is some talk, and they would like public opinion about the Schroeder Fieldhouse building here. Possibly because there's no more ice rink outside of there, pulling up the rubber floor and possibly putting tables down and maybe having card groups or book clubs in there, chess clubs, something to utilize that building that's not being utilized. Also, they talked about, and the reason, I think everybody's familiar with the Grosse Pointe Improvement Foundation and the wonderful works that they do, is locking the bathrooms at the Schroeder Fieldhouse so that only opening the bathrooms during the snow hill time or when the fields are in use, because those restrooms are being used as public facilities. And safety-wise, they are talking about possibly having those restrooms locked. That was one thing. As of the end of December, everybody got a card to put in a, sorry, I can't do two things at once, donation. And they've had, at the end of December, they have had 87 households responding for $12,017 of donations to the Grosse Pointe Improvement Foundation. Very happy about that. There is a secretary position open within the Grosse Pointe Improvement Foundation. So if you are a member of the Grosse Pointe Improvement Foundation and would like to be a secretary there, the secretary, they would like that. The park pavers need to be cleaned and sealed, and Lynn Kurtz, the current president, believes 3Cs did the work, but have they been contacted to clean and seal the park pavers? And there was a pickleball equipment. Is it viable?
Yes.
Okay, that was a question that they had. So that's it.
Good, thanks, Tina.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Bob, any comments?
Just join in a Happy New Year to everybody, and
Doug, anything?
Good, Happy New Year.
Okay, well, I have a few comments. Some of them we already discussed. We talked about the town hall we had for Park and Harbor, and to look at use and maybe some regulations. We had a good audience of residents to discuss the complaints about the large number of guests, particularly on the weekends. And again, residents complained about non-residents holding park passes and that, and so this stuff's gonna be fixed. We're gonna be open and transparent as to any complimentary guest passes that are being issued. And we're gonna look at the size of the parties, as Bob indicated. I mean, they're sizes, some of the picnics were 160 people, 120 people, 140 people. St. John's Hospital had their summer picnic there. We had some corporate events that were over 100 people there. And, I mean, if you think a third of that for cars. Meanwhile, we have soccer games going on, and we have the Grosse Pointe Soccer Association, now renamed, forgot what they're called now. Eastside. And so they have a lot of events on the weekends, and I imagine they come and park in our parking lot because it's easy and they don't have to park on the grass. And so we got to figure this out. And on that side, I met with the current president and the new president-to-be of the Grosse Pointe Shores Improvement Foundation right after the town hall. And we discussed, the fact that we really need to get, they're anxious to spend money on projects. They're holding $1.1 million, and they want to benefit this community. But they're looking at projects. And so we decided that we needed to update our master plan, which was done, I think, in 2002. And that's available for anybody to inspect upstairs by the highly credentialed group of Albert Kahn. That's why I think their price is so high for the update. But we got to figure this out right. I mean, we're getting a lot of even ideas about moving the tennis courts to this side of Lake Shore to free up that space. So, and we have some areas that are really kind of a dead area in the park on the side that fronts the Grosse Pointe Yacht Club, at the fence level, and then really all the way on the other side of the basketball court. So we're trying to get this right and do something that's going to be really of value to the park. We have a small park. We have the smallest park of all the parks, and so we have to be protected. This is a resident amenity, and we have to keep it a resident amenity. We're having a new event. We used to have this, our chili cook-off, which is on March 6th, Sunday, 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Hopefully, this will be the end of winter party. And we are looking for volunteers so that we can have a successful crowd. This is when we get together as neighbors. I think it's really important in a small community like Grosse Pointe Shores that we have these neighborly activities right within our own beautiful park. Another thing is currently we have Meet the Mayor, and it's 8:30 in the morning to 9:30. Anybody wants to meet with me on the Friday before the council meeting. But I really would like to see the council have a Meet the Council Day, or or have their own hours at City Hall, so that when we can hear it one-on-one. Some people say, well, I don't want to, I'll come to the meeting, but I don't want to speak, or I really don't feel like I should speak, but this is where we get close to the public, and we learn what you want. I mean, these are your seats, not ours. And so we need to get closer to you to find out what we could do better. When we all ran for council, I think years ago, you know, the motto was, maybe we can do better, a little bit better. It's not perfect, but, you know, we're really trying. And so today we had a pension commission meeting. We're really truly blessed to have some really highly credentialed people serving on the pension commission. This is a very important commission, and our chair is got years of experience. That's what he does. That's his job. And I'm sitting looking at our another commission member who worked, that's all he did is make people money. And Chuck, that's you. So, I mean, we're very, very pleased to have, these are volunteers. You know, and we're acting as fiduciaries on behalf of the city. Finally, last Sunday, my wife and I were having a nice breakfast together, and my wife noticed a large nest in our backyard, in a tree in our backyard. And she said, something's moving up there. And, I mean, I'm 62 years old, I've never seen this, but she said, it's an eagle. It's an eagle. And it was all bunched in on this very large nest in the backyard tree, and then spread its wings wider than my span right now, I believe, and just gracefully, and I looked, that's a bald eagle. And I went to the encyclopedia of birds that I have, and I confirmed that's a bald eagle. And it just flew right effortless over our house. And I said, you know, I've never experienced that, you know. And I think we heard last month, I think somebody said that there's some bald eagles that live, is it in the Deeplands Preserve, or, you know? Well, I don't know, maybe they live behind me now too, so I don't know if you can say that, but but what a wonderful, majestic, you know, I have never seen that. It was spectacular, and it was right in our backyard. I'm looking, and this is Grosse Pointe Shores, you know, like, it's something you gotta pinch yourself. Well, our next meeting is Tuesday, February 16th. I invite a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there support? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, who's in communications?
Oh, I know, no.
Yeah.
I asked Shane recently about this a couple of weeks ago. I was aware of it, I asked to see.
Well, have a good one.
Shane and farm officials.
Welcome back.
Yeah, it's nice to be here.
Yes.
See you, Bob. Okay.
Okay, yeah, okay, then.
Piece of paper off the scene, figuratively speaking. Unofficially, getting with the
Okay, we just looked at